Hey, all you scholars, it's Makito here, and today we're going to be going over Chapter 1 of the Fuseki Revolution book, How AI Has Changed Go. This is straight from the Kisiedo website. This is actually where I purchased my copy of the book, and you can also get it on Amazon. We're gonna go through the book, and I don't know what more to say about it. My startings are always a little bad, but let me read the back of the book here so you guys get an idea of what we're looking at, and then we'll get into the diagrams. So, Go playing AI programs have changed the very nature of professional Go. In the half decade since the emergence of AlphaGo in 2016, the conventional wisdom of Go has been transformed. Opening patterns previously favored by professionals of all levels have lost popularity, and some have disappeared altogether. Large moyos have lost out to thoroughgoing preference of the AI for actual territory and its skill at reducing moyos. Josekis have been transformed with standard moves disappearing and their place being taken by new techniques invented by AI. Even some moves that were previously considered taboo or as being crude or ineffective have been reassessed by AI and have earned places in the standard uh, repertoire. All right, so let's take a look at chapter 1 here. Chapter 1, this is about why popular openings declined. So we're going to look at some old Fuseki openings. The meaning of Fuseki, if you don't know, is like opening patterns. Josekis are the opening patterns for like one corner or one fight, but a Fuseki is generally like all four corners being handled. So it's like a global strategy, a global opening. This chapter covers old Fuseki and shows why, after AI, they declined. The primary reason for the major change was the value of the corners. The sides and center are not valued highly. Keep that in mind as we look at the Sanrensei and the Chinese opening. So essentially, with the invention of AI overtaking the best players in the world, we found that the computers really value the corners more than anything else. There was plenty of Fusekis where we cared more about the sides or the center, right? And those start to go away because of the AI. So we're going to see that especially with the Sanrensei. Even today, this opening is quite popular among amateurs. Pros agree it's hard to win with this pattern. Turning large moyos into profit has become much harder since the AI has been invented. So I'm sure we're all familiar with the 3 star points. I used to play this too, right? When I was a double digit Q player, and it's known as the Sanrensei. To my knowledge, it was probably made popular in the 70s or 80s. I know Michael Redman used to use it in his prime. I'm sure he's still a great player today. I don't want to say he's not now. But I know he wrote a book on this opening, and I remember going through it before. So I have a fondness for this opening. So going through the moves, black with pincer, and then white goes into the corner and black blocks, right? Black breaks the target's mouth. This is to try and build a wall facing black's open area, right? So in the past, A was more common. Nowadays, B is considered the new modern Joseki if we're just looking at this specific corner. When we look at A, black then finishes his wall and connects his 3 stones. This old Joseki has changed. When we look back, nowadays this move is played by AI. This used to be considered a trick play. I remember, if black plays here, then white would come out, and this used to be considered really good for white. And of course, the right answer was for black to block here. So this used to be like almost a trick play, and then white would play something like this. But now, with the invention of the computers, AI says to push here to threaten this cut. and then play here. And at this point, then the white tanukis, even if black answers. So white 1 keeps black open. We can see that white 1 opens this area up. If black continues on the top side, white will tanuki. So the idea is that if, let's say, black plays here, white is already alive here, right? And so white actually doesn't respond and then plays something like this. So even if like black takes, I don't know the exact variation because it wasn't in the book, but I would assume that we'd play something like this. Black takes, and I still think white's alive, but if white didn't feel that way, white could turn, right? Or jump. But yeah, I guess nowadays we would ignore any black attack here. Maybe if black played this, we would answer, but so I find this pretty interesting as the modern take because before AI, I used to play this all the time, right? This was a very common Joseki. Now, mind you, you can still play this Joseki, and the Sanrensei is still considered kind of broken, and we're gonna see that. So let's take a look. So if white approaches the next corner, and black pincers normally, like black normally would, white has two options, and they're both considered very good for white. So the first is this one. This is an older style Joseki that was considered bad, but is now considered very good in this specific situation. So black pushes, white keeps ahead, black pushes, white tries to keep some type of connection. Black pushes and then jumps, right? So black settles, and now it's white's turn, and this is what makes this Joseki good. White has made an influence here, so black's not going to make a lot of points. And then white takes 13, which just utterly destroys what black was trying to do. Um, because white doesn't have to worry too much about the safety of these stones, white can play something like this. And in the book, it says this is black's best answer. Like no other move or attempt would do as good as this one. And even this one isn't great for black, right? So black keeps his stones connected. White breaks the tiger's mouth. This is the move that might be hard to find, right? Maybe you would want to break the tiger's mouth or just jump into the corner right now. But this is the move that I would find without studying this a little hard to find. But black blocks, white fixes, there's a weakness, black fixes, and now we get the number 8 move. This is really nice. So white is alive. Attaching at 1 is black's best move. White lives easily, and black loses its most valuable area. So when we look here, black has a wall facing white's strong group, right? White's not going to have any trouble living here, and so this isn't going to net black a lot of points. Black had a wall this way, and it was supposed to make a lot of points on the bottom, but now it's only making 1, 2, 3, 4 lines of territory, right? So this looks also inefficient. And white, on the other hand, is making 2 corners and has additional corners that haven't been touched yet. So this is considered far better for white. And you can easily see why the Sanrensei doesn't feel that great in this situation. So if we go back, we could also, if we're not comfortable with using this Joseki, we can also just jump in the corner as well. And if black continues to build its area, right? Because it's clear that all of black stones are facing this way. Because black has to play this, it gives white sente, and white gets the perfect move to reduce this entire area. Um, After black pincers, taking the second corner feels just as good. So just comparing the jump or taking the corner, they feel just as good, both of them. Black puts all his eggs in one basket here, and white can reduce easily. So between A and B, black has a few options, right, to try and handle this. The most aggressive one would be something like this, saying, hey, I have all these friends and all this power, we're going to take advantage of that. But when white has enough room here, to sorry, I got distracted for 1 second. But white has enough room here to attach onto black And so we're going to use our Sabaki skills, right? When we're weak, we want to attach and get stronger, right? And once we attach and black counterattacks us, we're just going to gain strength, right? And this is how we get stronger in tight situations, by attaching to things. So in this case, black tries to be as aggressive as possible, breaking the target's mouth. We get to push, right? This is very weak, so black has to respond. And then we get to make a Sabaki shape, right? This really nice shape where white's pretty much connected and is almost out. And black actually has some weaknesses down here, right? There's a big cut and stuff. So if black attaches on top, or sorry, attacks on top with one, white uses attachments to make Sabaki and moves into the center. So this is really nice for white. White's feeling very comfortable. And black really didn't get many points here, right? If white takes both corners and black only gets like this really isn't that great for black. So once again, we see the Sanrensei broken. The next example was if black just tried to save all its points, right? It spent all this time building two walls. It wants this area. So it plays this move to try and save itself. But once we push on the weakness here, black headbutts, we turn, black's weak again, so black has to try and make something. And with this, white then jumps, right? Because there's a lot of weaknesses here. And so this is really threatening, so black would respond. And now white takes his own Sanrensei. So when we look at this, I'll read the script and give any opinions if I have extra thoughts. Black takes about 40 points, but white takes 10 in both corners, so that's 20. Plus, white gets the value of its own Sanrensei. At this point, at the professional and computer level, white has pretty much a guaranteed win. At our level, amateur, double digit Q, single digit Q, I would think that the game could still be anybody's game. But I think even at our level, we can see that white really has a very clear advantage, right? White is very settled on both of these corners, and then has a lot of potential plus influence facing that potential. So this is considered really good. This is of course considered bad at the pro level. This book says an amateur this could still be anyone's game, right? He has the deviation. So if you're still interested in being devoted to the Sanrensei, he does give you an alternative, right, of how to use it. So let's take a look all the way back at move 14. So in this case, instead of pincering again, like we did in the top, black recommends this diagonal. So this I find very interesting. If white jumps in, we block, and white pushes. And, I could find these moves, but the move that I'm surprised about is this one, right? This is very common when we don't have this marked stone here. But it looks a little weird to me because naturally I'd want to play like R5 or something. So this is a really nice alternative. White connects under, and normally we don't Hane right away, but in this case we can, right? So we Hane and fix, and now when white comes under, we block. And at this point, this is the next move I probably wouldn't find naturally without studying, which is to Tanuki now, right? When we look at this connection, if white plays here, then white's going to gets the corner and gets out on the side. So I would want to prevent that, right? In some manner, I'd want to prevent that. But in this case, because if white gets its own Sanrensei, it's too good, then black plays here and breaks this area up. And so white can play this way, but it feels a little slow if black gets another move on the outside. Comparing the other boards, this is much wider than the other board, right? So black got a lot more points and, is breaking up a lot more area. So this is considered if you still like the Sanrensei, you can try this move, which is P4. Remember P4, remember R6, and remember Tanukiing away from P11. Or sorry, P2. Black, sorry, I'm probably going to repeat myself, but I'm going to read the script I wrote from the book. Black one is the important move using the diagonal. This allows you to hem white into the corner. securing points on the top, and ending with Sente, so you can break up the left side. This is the end of theme 1, which was the Sanrensei. So now we're going to move on to the next theme, which is the Chinese opening. Until a few years ago, the Chinese opening was one of the most popular openings because of its superb balance between territory and moyo. The AI invented nice techniques to ruin this opening. Whether A or B, these techniques still work here. So the idea is this is the low Chinese, but the high Chinese, or even this deviation, this like alternate Chinese opening, the techniques that we're about to look at all work against these. So keep that in mind. So the first thing we look at is what if white just plays here, right? This is a very common way to play. When somebody played the Chinese, we would first ask this question. Black jumps. And this is the first like modern AI that we see, Joseki wise, here. Normally, the book says we would jump into the corner, or you might be familiar with the Q18. But now with this one high jump, we poke here, and then we asked if we can take the corner. Black Tanukis and jumps away. And now AI techniques touch up the top. White used to play A. Black 6 and 8 used to be ideal development. So looking at this now, even with my eyes, right? I think that black looks really great here, right? This looks like it has almost like a double wing formation and looks pretty hard to invade or handle. Now, um, the AI is going to make it easy for us. So if anybody continues to play the Chinese, hopefully you'll remember these moves to really break this up. So I guess we'll look at this one first, which is this. This is the attachment. So when we attach to this 3/4 stone, now black's normal options are laid out for us, right? We're taking the corner, Hane attacking to make this side more valuable or to pull back. So let's first look at the corner. Well, actually, let's look at the old variation first. So before we play the new modern AI attachment, this was a well-known play, Joseki. Um, so black would want to keep his corner, and white then presses on black. Black pushes, white jumps, black breaks the tiger's mouth, and then white jumps up. And so this is the old Joseki. It's still considered okay or good, but the AI attachment is far better. So this is very interesting. That this is still okay, but let's play something even better, or let's learn something even better from the AI, which is this attachment. So if black Hanes, right, it's very common to Hane against a stone touching you. White then comes up with this counter Hane. I call it the dancing Hane, right? If he's trying to move around you this way, you dance around him on the other side. But feel free to call it what you want. Black then Ataris, right? White only has 2 liberties. White gets stronger. Black has 2 weaknesses, so black has to fix. White gets to push, and then make a base. And push, and push, and when black plays up here, now we can read the script. So if black plays 1, we use the counter Hane, or dancing Hane, at 2. White settles with a nice reduction, and black is over-concentrated at the marked stone point. Now, even though I've read this multiple times and seen it multiple times, I can imagine it's a little hard to feel like black is over concentrated, right? Like it looks like black's getting a bunch of points, right? White's very small and it's a very small reduction. But the idea, especially at a pro level or AI level, is that this stone is really awkwardly placed, right? If we took away this stone and it was black's turn, we wouldn't play here, right? We would probably fix our weakness, in some manner, right? And so this stone just looks really awkward. It looks like it's useless, if that makes any sense. So the idea is that we feel like we've wasted a move here. Like this shouldn't be here. And so it's over concentrated, right? It's a waste of a turn. It's a kind of a high level concept to really think about, right? I think once I say it out loud, you can recognize it, but um, just understand at the highest level of Go, this is considered much better for white than black, just because of this one turn, which is kind of interesting. So let's go back. So this is if black Hane's for the corner. Let's look if black Hane's for the outside, right, or the side of the board. Well, now you're gonna meet our friend again, right? The dancing Hane. This is a very common and very useful technique that will work pretty much anywhere on the board, right? When you attach, right? You can get used to kind of dancing around. Is it good for every situation? No, but just understand, or the reason I bring it up is this technique is it's very interesting, right? Like most people, I would think would want to so if black played here, would want to get stronger, right? Or maybe start cross-cut crazy fight, right, to make things complicated. Um, but this dancing Hane, this counter Hane is really interesting. I think it's fun. So black has a big weakness and fixes, and then white has a weakness and fixes, and this is it. No matter which Hane black uses, white can settle pretty easy. White's alive in the corner, right? And once again, the stone is really awkwardly placed, right? If we're looking at a two-stone wall, white usually would want to play 3 spaces apart, and black would want to usually play either that close or this close, right? So once again, this is awkwardly placed, and white is kind of safe and alive, right? White's not going to have any trouble living. Um, so this is how to manage this part. The last part is this one, which I find the hardest, but the more I look over it, the more I have it memorized. Um, so for this instance, when we're looking at fundamentals, right, we don't want to run next to black because black would be ahead in the race, right? Black would hit our head or move forward. And so what we do is move the opposite direction. So if we're looking towards the wall, then white is ahead in this race. Black goes forward, and white then brings out a shape that is very useful. This is called the scorpion shape, right? Here's the tail, the body, and then the 2 pincers. This is a shape that's going to become one of your good friends, along with the dancing or counter Hane, right? So once we look here, black pulls back instead of Hane. White uses the scorpion shape. So the pullback is here. Instead of Hane, black pulls back here, and then white gets stronger with this fun shape. This scorpion shape is very, very useful. Even if black takes, right, white is still connected to its buddy here. And so this reduction was very useful, right, very successful. And if it was later in the game and there was co-threats to be played, white could play this to make a ko, right? And if white wins this ko, then white would live pretty easily. It's too early in the game, so we don't play the ko, we play this move. But keep in mind the versatility of the scorpion shape. It's really nice. Even if black stubbornly attacks, breaking the tiger's mouth here, white then just jumps. And so if black attacks, white too is very light. White handles every situation, right? All the hanes, all the pullbacks. If you don't want to exchange the top right moves, you can even start the attachment earlier. So if we go all the way back to the beginning, and you just want to make the Chinese as simple as possible, you can immediately just attach here. You don't have to make these exchanges first. If black hanes, I'm hoping you guys will know the technique now, and if not, by the end of the lecture, hopefully. But we use the counter hane or the dancing hane, right? Black Ataris, we connect. There's 2 weaknesses. Black fixes, we push. and then we make a base. Very, very simple stuff. I went through that a little faster than usual, but we've already done this formation, right? So it's the same thing. White settles quick, and black still feels over concentrated. This mark stone feels awkward. This isn't where black would want to play after, the q6 move. Um, so this is already considered good for white, right? And then vice versa, if black plays over here for this side, well, we once again use the dancing hane, and then we can connect, right? Black has weakness, we connect, black jumps, and then we jump, and white's alive, right? And once again, white settles in the corner, and the mark stone is in an awkward place. The Chinese opening has been defeated. There's no good moves for black when white attaches. And to be fair, I said this before, so I'm repeating myself and take it with a grain of salt. But at our level, at an amateur, I'm a 1Q SDK. And most of the people who watch my channel, I believe, are double digit Q players. At our level, just because we get a good advantage in the opening doesn't mean that we're going to win the game, right? The game could change drastically over like big deaths and all sorts of things. But I just want you to know that at the highest level of Go, this book states that the AI and pros agree that white takes a pretty big advantage, and that's very important at like a pro level. For our level, it's nice to have an advantage in the opening, but doesn't mean we're going to play well in the middle game or ending. So anyway, that's the end of the Chinese for this one, the Low Chinese and High Chinese specifically. So now we're going to look at another famous one. This one was even more popular with the Dom players and high level players of my time, just before the AI like destroyed all these openings, which is the Mini Chinese and the Micro Chinese. So we're going to talk about the Mini Chinese now. This was the most popular opening among pros before the AI took over. Um, so in the past, we used to play A, and you can sense this is kind of a very old school way of thinking, right? Nowadays, the computer loves attachments and contact plays, right? 3-3s. And it's always looking for the most efficient way to harass your opponents. But back in the day, if black made like a big enclosure or any enclosure, we used to just play directly in the middle and say, "Hey, you wanted to make this? Well, now you can't," right? But times have definitely changed, and we're going to see that now with this particular lesson, right? So back in the day, this is how black would play. Black would push white into black strength, and then black would make more strength, right? And so white one is the old way of thinking, breaking up the side using a center stone. This was very playable for black back then. Um, Now it's more common to use attachments to break up sides, right? The AI has introduced us to a lot of attachments and contact plays. So in this case, this is the AI move, right? And it's very similar to the Chinese one. In fact, it's pretty much the same exact move. And so a lot of the techniques are going to be very similar, right? The AI plays the attachment, which destroyed the popularity of this opening. It's similar to the Chinese opening attachment. So first we'll look at A, which, in my opinion, it's the first thing I would think of, right? I want to attack this stone while protecting my corner. So once again, our best friend, the dancing hane technique, comes out. Very useful to understand how these attachments work and how we can counter and dance around. Black attacks, white fixes. Black has two weaknesses. Black has to fix. Then we push and we jump. And so once again, white settles extremely easy, and black's mark stone is considered over concentrated. So let's look at Tawari. If you guys don't know, Tawari is kind of taking away the fluff like unnecessary exchanges and feeling out if the position's good or not. So once we take away like this stone and this stone and these two stones for white, it kind of looks like if white played at one first, right? The low, instead of the attachment, if white just played the low approach to Q3, black kicks, white stands, black jumps, right, to keep his stones connected, and white makes a base. And so removing the fluff with Tawari, we can see black's mark stones are all low, right? Each one of these are very low to the ground, and only focus on one side of the board. This is considered good for white, right? This isn't good for black. Black stones are small and they're only at one area, while white stones are efficiently taking one, two, and a part of three quadrants of the board, right? So Tawari is a very, in my opinion, high level way to study. A lot of the four dans I know use it when they're doing reviews, but I don't. I understand the concept, but I don't go out of my way to do it. I'm really bad at self reviewing my own games, and that's why I rely a lot on these books. But anyway, so this is if black plays A, it's very easy for white to handle, right? So what if black plays B, right? This is closer to black stones here, so it looks more dangerous for white. But white, once again, plays our favorite buddy, the Dancing Hane. Um, so if black just plays normal, right? Black has a weakness and fixes. White fixes, and white's already alive and settled. So this is really nice for white. If black plays the double digit Q way, and I call it this way because I usually see that when there's an Atari, people immediately just go for the Atari, even if it's bad. And in this case, it's bad, right? If black goes this way, white will push out. Black then Ataris again, and white then attacks, and then takes the ladder. And so you can see this group is really safe for white, and black is pretty pushed down into the small corner, right? If white turns at P3, that would be crazy good for white. If white gets to settle this area, like, I don't know, let's say S6, this is also a good seal for white. So this is really nice position for white, as long as the ladder is favorable, in which it is. So it all stems to this attachment. If you can remember this part and then remember the dancing Hane, you should be able to find a way to make a good result. Finally, and I think it's the most difficult to handle if you're playing as white, is when black plays this one. Now, if you remember our fundamentals, we don't want to run and have black ahead of us hit us on the head. So instead, we move downwards. And with black following us, then we hit, well, actually, I was thinking we would make the scorpion, but instead, we have enough room here to make a base. So if black avoids the Hane and extends at 1, white settles. Black's plan was to build a big territory on the bottom, but that is ruined. Um, so looking at this, the AI has found a way to successfully break up this opening, right? This was a very, very popular opening with the pros before AI, and now it's considered not good, right? This opening. What if black chose the micro instead? So looking at this, white was able to make a base fairly easily. But what if black chose this move? Well, now once we get to the same position, white can't make a base here because black's too close. So this is when we employ my other favorite shape, the scorpion shape, right? This is a really nice shape that isn't talked about a lot. I learned this shape through Inseong, and I've learned it through the Fuseki Revolution book. Black Atari, and instead of us worrying about making a ko, it's too early in the game to do that. We then jump out, right? And as black defends itself, because if white is strong here, right, it's very hard to attack white. Then this group is very weak. So black defends, and then white actually just tanukis, right? The idea is white doesn't care about R2, It just cares that it got out and reduced this area. Our friend the scorpion shape comes back into play. White is happy with the reduction. The micro Chinese lost its popularity. So what should we do with this position, right? What should we do when we set up this start? And nowadays, instead of playing A or B, the mini or the micro, nowadays it's very popular to play the two space high pincer. Well, not pincer, enclosure. Two space high enclosure. Black's move at 3, the high enclosure, has become much more popular to use than the micro and mini. So this is a really nice example of showing us how modern Fuseki has changed, right? Um, so we're going to go into, we finished the Sanrensei, the low Chinese, the mini Chinese, and the micro. So now we're going to the theme 4. It's the star point with a 3-4 enclosure, right? A knight's enclosure. This is a very popular opening. This has been around for a very, very long time. I want to say people started experimenting with the star points a lot in the 1920s or 30s. That's what I remember hearing. Because in Japan, they would really only play all the 3-4s, right? This was considered the normal in older Go. This is all secondhand knowledge, so if you want to take it with a grain of salt to correct me, feel free to do it in the comments. But I think it was the 1920s and 30s where the star points started to come into experimental play. And you might be saying, well, the Chinese were playing on the star points since the beginning of the game, and that's true, right? They would set up a cross game. So, but once the world adapted Japanese style play, where instead of having 4 stones already on the board and having an empty board, um, to my knowledge, the fourth line stones were considered too high for a very long time. Anyway, that was just a little tidbit of my personal knowledge. None of that was in the book. All the book says is this says opening's been around for a while, but I thought it was a little interesting, so I wanted to share it. It was known for having a nice grasp of both territory, right? Here's your territory, the enclosure, and then influence, right? This move wants to move really fast to the star points. The AI claims another human-made Fuseki. So the AI destroys what we used to play years and years for like years and years, right? 70 years, if not more, right? Playing this opening. So C, D, and E are alt moves. So we'll talk about that after. For now, White used to play this, right? And once again, this is the old style way of playing, right? Um, it's very common in like older books from the Kisiedo set, like the 1970s, 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, for us to play like, hey, black is making an influence facing this way, and this area is becoming very big. So let's just plop right in the middle, and now black can't make it, right? White's going to live, and then it's going to be hard to make the side. But AI really, really prefers contact plays. So even though this isn't an attachment, the AI loves to play this move right now. And there's a reason for it, right? It's very recognized as a good move. Um, so when black blocks, right? When we look at this board, this was where black is building, right? Black has a wall here, so black wants to develop here. So black blocks this way. Black is very common to play A. White pushes and then hugs under. So invading the corner is recognized as very effective, right? If black continues with A, this is going to be a problem for black. But to be fair, even if black plays B, it's going to be a problem for black. So let's take a look. If black plays A, we push once, and now white's guaranteed life in the corner. So white tanukis, right? And with this attachment on the 3-4 stone, black is very heavy here. So white gets to kind of play, and black has to fix its problem, and then white gets to play number 8, right? If black continues with 1, white takes Sente to play 4, an attachment move. Black becomes overconcentrated, and white gets its splitting move with 8. Painful for black. White wastes no moves. So whereas you could argue 7 feels like a wasted move, white feels like it hasn't wasted 1, right? And that's already more efficient. 2, well, black spent 2 moves to build up this wall, and now this wall is completely neutralized when white gets to play something over here. So this looks a little silly or neutralized or inefficient. And this looks a little silly and neutralized and inefficient. And so we can see that playing N1 is considered actually very bad in this Joseki. So nowadays, modernly, you usually see people Tanuki, right? And it's very common for white to Atari and then play down, and white's pretty secure. But black usually gets a strong wall out of it. Still, though, because the small knight enclosure is here, this is considered bad. Because as soon as white hits the shoulder hit, what is black going to do, right? No matter which direction black picks, white's going to be able to kind of jump and reduce this area, right? Black can't expand this moyo as long as white's alive here. So if black goes to 1, white uses 2 and 4 to make black biased to one side of the board and over-concentrated at the bottom right. Having these 2 stones with a 1 jump is over-concentrated. It's not efficient. So this is a very small corner, whereas white got a very efficient corner. Is doing an efficient job of breaking up this moyo a bit, and white also has 2 free corners that haven't been touched. So this is considered really, really good for white. If we go back and see if we can make any alternative moves, black could try this move, which then forces usually white to play one of these moves. And then as soon as black tries to build a base again, right, black has Sente with this wall. Well, now white once again plays this. And so now, once again, it's kind of the same thing, right? Black is over-concentrated. Black can't build a big moyo. It just feels really bad. So this opening is destroyed, right? And it shows that for the most part, the small knight enclosure is out of date, right? It's not that good because it's very easy to make this over concentrated or heavy. So if the small knight is considered bad, the next thing that we would look at is, let me get it right, is this 1 jump, right? So if black tries to use the 1 jump, if you've ever tried this against strong players or have been watching any strong players, a lot of them, 9 times out of 10, when you make a jump enclosure like this, you get attached right on the nose. And to me, it comes out as these really complicated variations that don't feel like they match my fundamentals. I'm going to give you guys the only one that showed up in the book, but I know in my own personal games I've dealt with a lot of variations that were really annoying. So anyway, let's take a look. So if black Hane is on top, white uses our counter Hane or dancing Hane friend, right? I like that the technique continues on even when we're not like on a 3-4 point. Black has a weakness, so it gets stronger. And now in the other ones, we would get stronger. But in this case, if we did, black would get a nice shape for the corner, right? With this tiger's mouth. So instead, we break the tiger's mouth. This all makes sense so far, but it does feel already like I'd be conflicted on what I would want to choose. When black plays here, this is another move I'd feel conflicted on, right? Me personally, I'd want to connect, but instead, white tries to push through. Black blocks, white pushes for the corner, black takes, which fundamentally I would want to like secure my stone because it only has 2 liberties. But black takes, and then white takes. And so now after black 15, which Atari is this like ko situation, instead of fighting the ko, white's considered alive, and so white plays here. So to me, this looks really interesting, right? Let's read the scripts, and I'll add any information if I have any. White tries to make black over-concentrated. So black counter-punches, right? When white first attached, I believe it was at 004 here, this is trying to make black over concentrated. But black counters by taking the stone, right, and giving up a stone. Black gets the outside and white gets the inside. But since white gets sente, the pros in AI believe black has fallen behind. So, at our level, once again, this could be anybody's game. But at the pro level, this is considered good for white, which normally in my eyes isn't the case, right? Normally, if you get hemmed in the corner and black takes the full outside, then it would be considered good for black. But because the AI values the corners even more than the sides and center, um, this is considered better, right? It's because white gets sente, and so that's the really nice move, right? And if this live, it's going to help neutralize this wall and take apart some of the corner. So that's why I see what it's talking about. So even though there's probably many variations to this, right? Black could play here, here, here. Black could tanuki. Um, the book only goes over this one, and it explains that this has become out of fashion. This one space high enclosure. Um, so now the pros, or the book, he says the pros were studying B a lot, right? So if we go to B, this is the large knights move. I actually see this played a lot, especially at my level. But it is also, if you know all the moves, right, this is also considered inefficient. Just like how the small knight felt inefficient and could be over concentrated, and how A has its own ways of like being over concentrated. This is also considered inefficient. So white plays over here instead of attaching right away. If black backs off, now this attachment is really good, especially if black goes into the corner. Because when white uses, once again, the dancing hane, then black will Atari, white gets stronger, and black has a weakness, so black fixes. And now we get to push, push, push. We get to throw a probe in, which makes Q3 and S4 both uncomfortable, right? So black's gonna have to respond. And then we push, and then we jump. And so there was a point where the pros experimented with large knight, but after the 2-3 exchange, so 2-3 exchange, white's attachment manipulates black, and white gets an ideal position. This is considered good for white. So when we look at this, once again, I'm just gonna give some personal thoughts. For me, I'd be like, oh, black got a decent amount, and black has the claim to some corner, and white got a side. So to me, it feels a little even. But this is considered better for white on a stronger scale. I guess ideally because this was black's corner, and this was essentially black's like development side. And now that it's been ripped away from him, and this corner isn't even finished yet, then it's considered good for white. So that leads us with our final thought, right? Which is why, which is why I'm messing up all my variations, guys. Let me delete this one. Dot. And yes, this is what I was looking for. And let me just delete these because they're annoying me. So let's just delete these. Oh, I hope I didn't do anything too bad. That might have been bad. No, I think we're fine. I think we're fine. All right. I should cut this from the video, but I'm not. And this is the end of the video, mind you, so I think it's kind of funny. But yeah, so this is what we're talking about. We covered the small knight, the one jump, we covered the large knight, and now we're covering the 2-space high enclosure. Black one is the choice nowadays by most pros in AI. The small knight, one jump, and large knight enclosures are all considered inefficient. They can be pressed down or over concentrated. So the 2-space high is the way to go for most now. So that is it, right? We covered the Sanrensei, Chinese, mini, micro, small knight, star point. And next week we'll be going over the Kobayashi. So I hope you guys found this useful. I really do love, because I started playing in 2005. So I got to experience all these openings, right? Every single one that we covered, I've used or experienced or even had trouble with. Right, I used to remember having trouble with the Chinese opening. Um, so learning these old patterns is nostalgic and extremely interesting to see how the future or modern today has destroyed them or at least changed them, right? So very interesting stuff, guys. Fuseki Revolution, check it out. If you're international, I advise going through the Kisieto website. I did the same. But if you live in America with from Prime, that little plush checkbook, you can get it in what, like 1 day for just $2 more. So either way, guys, it works. Take it easy, and see you in the next lecture.